When was the last time that Xbox had a clear gamer-focused identity? I actually think it was during the generation of the Xbox 360, and I think a lot of Xbox fans would probably agree. And it does sound weird to say that because that was almost 20 years ago, and what have they been doing since, right? But I believe the gamer-centric focus ended after the 360 because if you just stop and think about what made the Xbox 360 era so good, it was their innovation being focused on the gamer and the gamer's experience. They introduced trophies, they introduced a gamer score, they also had digital games, there was an Xbox Arcade, I consistently used it to try games and then buy them if I liked them, and all of this was undergirded by Xbox Live. It was clear that their innovation was about giving you a better experience as a gamer, but they did more than that. They also invested. They had great first-party games, they had a focus on third-party exclusives to make it seem like this was the best place to be a gamer. Now, some would say that the Xbox One was where they lost their way. And I do think that's correct to a certain degree, but I would go further than that and say that they are simply repeating the same mistakes again this generation. And that is the Xbox problem. And I'm going to look at two things, mainly the lack of identity and targeting non-gamers to demonstrate what I mean. Now, whenever I upload a video like this, I follow it up with a live stream so you can discuss it with me. So if you like this kind of content, hit like and subscribe. Now, when I say that Xbox doesn't really have an identity anymore, what would you say in response? Is their identity centered on their console, hardware, first-party games? Is it Game Pass? Is it xCloud, the ecosystem? Is it mobile? I honestly don't even think the higher-ups at Xbox know right now because Satya Nadella has made it very clear that Xbox is just an extension of Microsoft now. And this all stems back to a problem that they have been trying to solve since the Xbox One. And the problem is there aren't enough gamers. Phil Spencer has sort of said this in a variety of ways over the years. He talks about how the industry isn't growing. And what he means is that the console gaming landscape has been somewhat static. Roughly the same number of people and customers are buying into the console marketplace every generation. So what did Xbox do in an attempt to solve this problem? Well, they brought out the Xbox One and they had a huge focus on TV. If you've not seen the montage of how many times they said TV when they had their Xbox One presentation, it is both humorous, but it's also a quick glimpse into what happened during that generation. Now, this is the generation that Phil Spencer described as the worst one to lose because gamers had started building their digital libraries. And on one hand, Xbox was ahead of the curve. I've said this very many times. A lot of what they tried to give the consumer in the Xbox One is now incredibly common and very standard in smart TVs. They're always online. They allow the user to both watch TV and streaming services. And now on some of the newer TVs, you can even do cloud gaming. But the problem for Xbox was twofold. The first problem was they were no longer focusing their innovation on the gamer experience. Remember all those things we listed during the 360 era? They were innovating on the experience of the gamer. And that's related to the second major problem here. They focused their innovation on the non-gamer. Now, the reason I say this was a twofold problem is simple. You weren't focusing on your existing gamer audience, and so you lost some of them. And then you didn't replace them with these non-gamer customers that you were hoping to pull in. This is why I say Xbox has no identity. They were chasing the customers rather than building an identity that would bring the customers to them, which ironically would have probably pulled in more gamers and more consumers. If you look at the growth of Nintendo and the success of both Nintendo and PlayStation in the recent years, they centered their identity around gamers, and they've been very successful at doing that. And this, I think, with the lack of identity stemming all the way back to when they targeted the non-gamer, I have to say, they are once again doing the exact same thing. When I say that Xbox is once again repeating the mistake of chasing the non-gamer, it's not hard to find examples of this. They promoted Starfield saying that there was no console required. That's clearly targeting somebody who doesn't really consider themselves a gamer. Then there was the recent focus on the Fire Stick and the cloud and mobile, ways to engage with Xbox games in non-traditional ways. This is all focused on non-gamers, people that are not in that traditional console market. Because you might say, hey, wait, mobile gamers are gamers too, and I wouldn't disagree, but I would really push back and say that I don't think they're going to change their habits. If they're playing Candy Crush right now, I don't think a Starfield commercial or a Doom the Dark Ages game through their cloud or or their phone or their television is going to make them suddenly start becoming a gamer in the sense of what Xbox is looking for. And the rest of the consumers out there who don't spend their time gaming, those that they were maybe trying to target with the TV thing, well, I don't think the barrier for them has been, well, I have to buy a console. If I could just play Call of Duty or Avowed or Starfield through a Fire Stick or a smart TV, well, then I would become a gamer. So just like last time, I don't think Xbox is going to be replacing the gamers they're losing with these non-gamers. Sure, you've got great revenue coming in from mobile gaming, but remember what Phil Spencer said. The industry isn't growing. So unless non-gamers or mobile gamers suddenly start jumping into Xbox's funnel through cloud or Game Pass or their console, the plan to alleviate the lack of gamer growth has failed, which is exactly why I think Satya Nadella reinforced a handful of things in a recent annual letter that he wrote. If there is one person who has been at the center of Xbox changing, I would say that person is Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft. He made it clear during the FTC trial that if he had it his way, there would be no exclusives, and he continues to boast about publishing games on PlayStation and Nintendo. His compensation is also no longer attached to Game Pass growth, and his recent letter titled My Annual Letter, Relevance and Reinvention makes it clear. Xbox will continue to have its identity diminished as the goal is more users and more customers. Just listen to this paragraph and I'm going to point out a few things that I noticed. He said the following: "We are bringing great games to more people on more devices. With our acquisition of Activision Blizzard King, which closed October 2023, we've added hundreds of millions of players to our ecosystem. We now have 20 franchises that have generated over $1 billion in lifetime revenue, from Candy Crush, Diablo, and Halo to Warcraft, Elder Scrolls, and Gears of War. And with Xbox Cloud Gaming, we continue to innovate to offer players more ways to experience the games they love, where, when, and how they want. Finally, we brought 4 of our fan-favorite titles to Nintendo Switch and Sony PlayStation for the first time as we continue to extend our content to new platforms." Now, the opening sentence says it all. They're bringing their games to more people on more devices. This is the problem they've always been trying to solve, is we got to get more customers. Now, I want to point out 4 things from this. There are 4 focuses that I think are very telling. There's a focus on player quantity, there's a focus on money, a focus on innovation, and a focus on publishing. So first, the focus on player quantity. This can be traced all the way back to the trend that we saw with the Xbox One. They want to expand their user base beyond people that just want to buy consoles. Now, a great way to do this is to buy some of the biggest games and biggest mobile games in the market, and now all of a sudden, you're not really focusing on Xbox, you're focusing on MAU, monthly active users. So just like when they turned their focus to TV and the Xbox gamers felt like they weren't the priority, you can still sense that happening today, especially when you consider the next 2 things that he focused on. First, the money. The franchises he listed aren't celebrated as being central to the identity of the brand. They're celebrated as generating over $1 billion in revenue, which makes perfectly good sense why he ends with a focus on publishing. But before we get to the publishing, think about the games that he listed: Candy Crush, Diablo, Halo, Warcraft, Elder Scrolls, and Gears of War. Halo and Gears those are console games, right? Those are Xbox-centric titles, and they're listed along with multiplats and a mobile game, because in Satya's mind, they are all equal. No more brand ambassadors, no more identity-driving games. They are simply a means to maximizing profit. But after the focus on money, he speaks to innovation, and this is where he speaks to cloud gaming and giving players more ways to enjoy games in more places. And totally absent from this is any mention of hardware or consoles. In other words, the franchises were listed to demonstrate how much money they can earn, and then the innovation is mentioned as a way for you to not play on console. That's what they're investing their money in. Again, the identity is not gamer focused, it is user quantity focused, which is clearly demonstrated by the last thing he talks about. He says this: "Finally, we brought 4 of our fan favorite titles to Nintendo Switch and Sony PlayStation for the first time as we continue to extend our content to new platforms." Now, recently there were rumors that they were going to slow down with their publishing efforts on other platforms due to the negative response to Indiana Jones. But I'm going to say the same thing I said a year ago when the CFO signaled that this would happen. And then it happened. They're always going to signal the direction and trajectory changes in these environments. They're letting people know this is where the company is going. And Satya is making it clear. They publish games on Nintendo and PlayStation, and they're going to continue to do that. In other words, this doesn't sound like they're slowing down. It sounds like they got the results that they wanted, and they're going to keep expanding. So when the CEO of Microsoft is saying all these things and focusing on all these things, there's only one thing to conclude. The Xbox problem has never really gone away. When they shifted their attention to non-gamers with the Xbox One, the brand lost its central identity. And to be honest, they've not really shown any signs of fighting to get it back. Even this generation, the Series S seemed more like a reaction than something that was focused on the gamers. They got beat on price with the Xbox One versus PS4, so they were trying to beat PlayStation on price. It wasn't something that was an identity driver or something gamers even asked for. Gamers always want more power and more performance, not less. And the Series S is not even focused on the developers either. Look at how incredibly opposite the picture of the brand is now. During the 360 era, it was easier for devs to build for the Xbox versus the PlayStation. Now, the opposite is true. Also, all the innovation was spent on giving gamers more on the Xbox platform, and now all the innovation is spent on things off of the Xbox platform. They went from being focused on getting both the games with exclusives and first party as well as gamers onto the platform to focusing on getting their games and their gamers off of their platform. And that, at the end of the day, is the Xbox problem. Everything became about things other than the Xbox itself, which, in a strange twist of irony, it makes the name of the console more fitting than ever. Just like we say ex-employee or ex-girlfriend, it is indeed the Xbox. But those are just my thoughts, and I'd love to hear yours. Following this video, there is a live stream. It'll be pinned in a comment below. It'll also hit a card right here, and if you leave a comment below, you might get featured in that live stream. As always, if you like this content, please remember to hit like, share, and subscribe.